Hello, I'm back. What a week. I hope everyone's doing. Just gonna wait for some more people to jump in. Today we have a really, really exciting group. It's my first group live, and here they are joining, requesting to join. Let me just get them in. Okay, guys, this is my first time doing, so let's see. I think it's working. I think. There we go. It worked. Hi, guys.
Hey.
I feel like I just saw you.
I know.
I wonder if everyone else feels the same way.
They're like, not these girls again. Jesus.
I know. It worked. It worked out because we just chatted on Sunday and I was doing this live thing and talking to badass women who are doing really cool things. And I'm so glad that you two wanted to be a part of it. So it's like I was on your show and now you're on my show-ish. Not really. But welcome. Thanks. So for everyone who's tuning in, for those who don't already know, I am speaking to the founders of The Girl and the Gov, Maddy and Sammy, and I'm going to let the two of you just kind of explain The Girl and the Gov, and then we'll get into more details. But why don't you guys tell everyone what that is?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us on. For everyone joining, we are super excited to be chatting with you guys and give you all the background of Girl and the Gov, what we're doing, what we're about. So for backstory, by the way, I'm Sammy for like recognition's sake. I'm the blonde one, Maddy's the brunette. And I founded Girl and the Gov, I guess about 2 years ago, originally as an events platform in New York City. So we still exist in that capacity, and we'll be bringing that element back once, vaccines are in arms and we are able to safely do that. But the origin story there is the concept of rebranding politics, making it really accessible and approachable for everyone. I had originally sort of run into an issue in the city of not feeling like politics was a really friendly space, or that if you didn't know an answer to something that it was okay, that you couldn't ask any questions. And I felt like, well, that's not right. That doesn't feel great. Like I have a million questions all the time and I want to ask them, right? And I definitely wasn't alone in that. So that's really where that sort of began. And we created these really awesome bespoke events. And then of course, good old COVID had to come in and really, put a little damper on those plans. And within our motions to pivot and think creatively and continue to bring that message, Maddy and I connected and decided, what's the best way to continue bringing this to everyone? And it was through a podcast. So from there, we went from events to airwaves, and, there's so much more to where we're hoping to go with it. But overall, our mission and our goal is to rebrand politics, make it approachable, make it okay to ask questions, and to answer every stupid question, because we have them too, like a million. And so on our show, that's, our main focus is talking with experts, getting their insights, getting their knowledge, pulling all of those great facts from them, and having them without any shyness asking those questions.
Yeah, it's so, I have so much to say about that, but Matt, is there anything that you, before I chime in, that you wanted to add to that amazing kind of overview?
No, say
she covered it all. I first was so drawn to what you guys were doing, is specifically because of those things that you just mentioned, because politics is so daunting. And I was always the person, I think I talked about this on your show, I was always the person that my friends would come to and be like, can you explain this to me? Yeah. And to be able to explain something in a non-condescending way is, first of all, a really great skill, but also you realize the more that you do it, like I can pinpoint the sections in an article or something that people are going to be like, I don't get that. We all have the same questions, and like it's like in class, like when, like everyone is confused about the same thing and no one asks. Like it's always the same things. And so we're like, to be able to create that space where you're just saying it's okay and like we have those same questions is so important. Yeah. So I absolutely love that. And just demystifying, simplifying, and also making it really fun. So you started with these like workout events, right? On rooftops or something.
Yeah.
Like,
which is like, honestly, so for those that aren't New York based, I know you guys are like West Coast. You guys are still having
We're
daylight
all
right now.
over.
I'm a little jealous. It's fine. Do you see my weird lighting? I'm trying. This is my attempt at daylight.
We always have sun on the West Coast, but no, there's a lot of people who, most people will be watching this after, because there's a lot of people in the UK. I see someone from Spain. Hola. This is actually interesting. Catherine said, I feel like in my state, there isn't freedom to say that you're a certain party. And if you say that you aren't that party, people shun you. You're not alone. That's not a state thing at all. It's just a cultural thing right now. And you know what? I had all of these questions prepared, and I really do want to ask you some of them, but I really want to take in people's questions, and like, I want to try something a little different this time. I know I'm like throwing this at you all of a sudden, but
Good.
I think that this is such an important conversation to have with our peers.
Totally.
So, so I guess, gosh, where do we start? I mean, when you first, what was the first kind of thing that you noticed that, you know, this was something that, like, conversations that need to be had, and that this was a space, I guess, that people weren't filling?
Yeah. So back in 2018, which feels like a century ago at this point, you know, we had our midterm elections, and I've always been super amped about voting. I'm like, yes, okay, I get to like give my opinion. Awesome. And kind of like you, I was that person in my friend group that people would always ask, like, what does this mean? Or even down to also then activities too, like, what are the coolest places to go, like on like a bar hop, like what are the cutest restaurants to go to, like kind of like all encompassing. And regardless, kind of noticed through those conversations that no one was registered to vote, and I was really shocked by it. And obviously when you like find something out and you're shocked, you have to ask more questions and find out, okay, well, there's always a why, right? And the why ended up being that my friends just didn't really know much about it. So they felt like, well, why am I gonna participate in something that I don't know anything about? It doesn't feel like I'm educated enough to have an opinion, or to put an opinion out there, or make any sort of, action with it. And so I was like, okay, well, why aren't you educated? And it was that intimidation factor. You're always scared of what you don't know, the fear, the unknown. And there was a lot of that. And it felt like for them, in their feedback that they provided me, that they just didn't even know where to start. And so I wanted to figure out, how can we solve for that? How do we make it fun? And I think that, like Maddy and I talk about all the time, like with the shows particularly, like we want everyone to have fun. We want you to like listen to this and be like, oh my God, this is a conversation I would have with our friends. Like totally, like, let me just like go grab a glass of wine, a cup of coffee, like whatever it is that you guys do, like do when you hang out, right? Like it should be like an easy conversation that you want to have. And so that's, our goal is to really sort of change that conversation. And it really just started though with essentially trying to answer that question of, why isn't this working?
Yeah. I would just piggyback on that too, and how we always talk about, we talked about on the show, just how intentional it is too, just for people to not be encouraged really to be engaged, or to not be given the proper resources or education to be engaged politically. So that was obviously a big part of what we wanted to change. But like Sam said, like my friends too, just really either weren't registered, weren't voting, weren't engaged. And it's something, I think it was just a reoccurring theme for both of us in our own lives. And so just like, I think for a while I've always been like thinking about how, because I was always like the friend that's like talking about politics. Everyone was like, okay, shut up. Like,
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know, how can, we rebrand this literally to make it more fun, and so that people like us would want to engage with it regularly, and not just, every 4 years, if they're even doing that. So
yeah, something I always say is, democracy doesn't happen every 4 years. It happens every day. And the only way that we can actually shape the direction of our country is if we participate. But then it's like we want to, but participating is actually hard. And so the fact that, we can congregate in this way and make it, you know, smart is sexy, like make it cool to get together with your friends and talk about these things. Or you know, a friend of mine, Kat Calvin, you guys spoke with her too. You guys spoke with everyone. But
she is the best,
like
parties, absolute best. I'm obsessed
she's
with her.
So cool. She talks about voting parties, you know, like why do we feel like we have to do this on our own and try to figure out this ballot stuff on our own? I mean, like split up the research. Each of you can take a question, talk about it after over wine, like have interesting conversations. These are things that actually really make a difference in your life. Totally. So I think that's fantastic and so needed. And I really hope that things will start to change and that our generation finds more ways to participate and feel like we're included.
Right.
And one of the things that you guys do that I think is so important is and I appreciate a lot, actually, you never come from a place like, oh, I'm the expert and I'm telling you how to think, or you're not really pushing any agenda at all. And today everything is so polarized and partisan. Everyone has an agenda and an opinion and whatever. You guys, it seems like, will speak to anyone with, you know, authority and are just trying to ask questions and then let the listeners decide for themselves, which is always really what I try to do in my content. And I was curious, like, why you made that decision as opposed to taking a more advocacy approach, which is, you know, super admirable and important in its own sense. But why did you guys choose to take that road?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we definitely tried. So we first tried to like fully be like nonpartisan, unbiased, but that's just really hard. And at the time we started it was in September, right before the election. It was just such a crucial election there, and there was almost like too much at stake for us to just like act like, you know, nothing crazy was happening or that there wasn't some crazy person in the White House. Like, it was important for us to be like, actually, this isn't normal, this behavior, and we need to hold these people accountable. And so now, you know, in this new administration, what we're just trying to, like, I guess in a way to balance all of that out is now to be like, okay, now we're holding both sides accountable in the same way, and that like if someone does need to be held accountable or acts out of the normal, like, then we will hold them accountable. But it was really hard for a long time to, you know, keep our opinions out of it. But I think the reason we are structured the way we are and not like in an advocacy lens is because I think there's so many people that need to just learn about these issues, just like in layman's terms, and like, and then be able to form their own opinion off of any information that we give them. So yeah, I mean, there's so many amazing resources, and we do like to provide like resources if you want to get active and you want to be an activist in advocacy, like we provide those resources. But for the most part, our content really, we prioritize just getting these issues across and giving a really simple understanding of everything and answering all the stupid questions about them. So that's, again, I think what I really like about our content as well. And I think that was so missing in this whole, you know, realm is like wherever you find your resources, someone's going to be leaning some way or have some kind of agenda. And our agenda is really just getting you the information you need to know, or that's at least what we try to do.
Yeah. And it's so hard. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, sort of just to, you know, piggyback off of that is, you know, we are not the experts, you know, we don't necessarily need to be positioned that way, right? Like, we want to learn with everyone too. So this is as much a process for us as it is for our listeners. So we want to be a part of that process, not trying to put ourselves on, you know, sort of a pedestal or acting like, oh, we know everything, because the reality is no one knows everything, first of all. And we definitely don't know everything about this either. So that was really important to us. And through this, you know, we get to introduce all these amazing advocates and, you know, different organizations as well. So we're able to provide the platform for them as opposed to being, you know, sort of their advocacy type platform.
Yeah. I think I've struggled with that kind of dilemma too, and especially the last 4 years, where I've always said, oh, I'm going to be completely neutral and not inject my opinions. But I mean, how did you reconcile that when, you know, things as basic as public health and wearing a mask become politicized? And then if you speak out against, you know, or sorry, if you speak out in favor of wearing a mask, suddenly like you're a Democrat. And then if you speak out against it, you're a Republican. Or, you know, like some of the most basic things, and like election fraud, which if you speak to any expert, you guys have spoken with many of them, we know that election fraud at scale doesn't actually happen. We have all the facts to prove it. But that has also become a partisan opinion now, and, you know, alternative facts and whatever. And it becomes, especially on social media, when people are so quick to judge and like give their comments, all of a sudden you're branded as, you know, like bleeding heart liberal or a racist Republican. It's just crazy and it's wrong. And I find that I really struggle with that. And I wonder how did you guys kind of walk that line? Because I think you did it so eloquently.
Oh man. That's a hard one. Sam, do you have a
right? I didn't prep that either. I totally gave them like questions in advance, and I haven't asked any of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think
I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. Oh my gosh, they're good questions for sure, and I think that just goes back to the conversation of, you know, informing people on these issues, because like you ask someone what they think about like healthcare. It's such a comprehensive issue, and I think like it's so easily we're put into boxes in these issues. So again, just trying to give a really comprehensive analysis of the issues so that people can get a better understanding of them. And then hopefully with that information and being informed in that way, you're able to form your opinions and be like, actually, like, I think like this and align with this party on healthcare. But now, you know, when it comes to climate, I align with this party on it. So just, you know, chipping away at that, where you like can start to understand issues for what they are rather than the issues of how they're portrayed like in the media and like through the partisan. So yeah, I mean,
no, that's spot on. It's that so many times the issues have been framed within the larger narrative of a party's agenda, and we shouldn't be thinking in that like bipolar way almost. It's like we need to think of these things issue by issue and try not to even label ourselves, I guess, because that would be so hard to do these days. What have you guys found to be the biggest, or not found, I guess it's a personal opinion, so what do you think are the biggest challenges that we're facing today? Because, you know, we're not out of the woods. Like a lot of people might think, okay, we got through these 4 years and the election is over, I can just go back to regular life, and I can't wait for post-COVID life to go back to normal. And, you know, we shouldn't want to go back to normal. We have an opportunity to really make real changes. And I think it would be such a missed opportunity if we didn't jump on it. And so I'm curious, like, what are your guys' like priorities, or what are the biggest challenges that we're facing today?
I mean, no, Maddy, you go ahead.
Okay.
This is my first time doing a three-way, so
you go, I go. Okay.
You go.
There's so many things.
Great.
But I think the biggest thing would be just fixing our democracy so it works again. Because right now we're at a place where, you know, there's a bill being debated right now about, you know, violence against women. And there are people who, just because it's a Democratic pushed bill, are just against it and won't vote for it, which is just insane. So we're at a place where we can't compromise or even consider having a healthy debate about issues because we're so divided and we're so stuck in our parties. And now it's like, it's just a political game now for people in office and in these seats. Like, they're worried about the next election and whoever is going to run, and, you know, whatever their, you know, base is going to think, rather than these issues that often are actually bipartisan when it comes to like, you know, the public's opinion on them. Like COVID relief, for example, 75% of the country wanted that bill, but nobody voted for it, or no Republicans voted for it. So I think there's, you know, from that stuff to voting, all of that, you know, we need to chip away at. And again, like, if it sounds disheartening, like we always say on our show too, it's such a long game and nothing's going to happen overnight. But I'm hopeful that the more that we, you know, open doors for young people to vote, and, you know, marginalized and minority groups to vote, like, we will be able to get new people in there, get fresh blood in there, and hopefully break some of those just like barriers to just having a functioning democracy. There's just so many barriers to that alone, so that we can't even get any of these issues solved for at this point. Like we're so far gone in the realm of just having a functioning democracy. So that would definitely be the first thing. And we talked about it on our podcast with you, just HR1 and what that can do with campaign finance and all of that. So that is like a huge first step that I think would be so crucial and such a big win. So I don't know, just gotta keep going. It's a long game.
Yeah, it all starts there.
Yeah,
we can't tackle any of the big things if we don't have a functioning democracy.
Totally. Yeah.
What were you gonna? Oh, yeah.
Like,
sorry, I lost you.
Like the biggest issue for me would definitely be climate, in my personal opinion. But again, like we can't even get to where we need to be on that until we're all on the same page and be able to have that debate and compromise and all of that stuff. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Sammy, what do you think?
It's layered. I don't think, everything is, right? But I think for us, it's the ability to have conversations with one another, and especially where we don't disagree, or we don't agree, sorry. And I think that really is at the core of it. We've gotten so far away from being able to have conversations about what we agree on and what we don't, and what we like about something. It's just either it's red or it's blue, and that's it. And I think that's really, such a core of all of our other issues, right? Like we've, for time immemorial, disagreed about policy and how to operate the democracy, but we've never been so divisive in how we communicate with each other. And so I think that the biggest issue is the communication, right? We need to kind of pull that down and think about how do we talk with one another and actually get to compromise, and then therefore get to policy that props our democracy up in a healthy way that allows us to move forward. So we do have an actually really awesome episode with an amazing therapist that everyone should go check out.
I love that episode. It was like, I felt like I was in a therapy session.
You right? And Maddy both.
Right?
I call you every week moving forward, just don't charge us for this, please. We turned it into our session a little bit for a while. We had to cut it out, but
she was amazing, and she gave some really great pointers. And I remember she was saying try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and look at it from their perspective. I feel really grateful that that's something I do almost naturally, because I trained as an actor, and so I'm constantly I almost subconsciously putting myself in someone else's shoes and seeing the world through their eyes. And that's such an important skill to have. And I feel like with social media and just the internet in general, it's so easy to attack a screen or just a username. Oh. And we forget that there's a human being behind that. And we say things that so often we would never say to someone to their face. Yeah. And when you actually have a conversation with someone, I consider myself very moderate. I have really, really liberal friends, and I have more conservative friends. And when I might disagree with whomever on certain policy issues, but 99.9% of the time when I sit down and I talk to them, and even people who aren't friends, people who I just met, and you have an actual conversation, you try to learn where they're coming from, even if they're wrong or if you disagree or they might not have their facts right, whatever, their heart is generally in the right place. Yeah, totally. And we have to start approaching people from at least give them the benefit of the doubt at the beginning. And I just think that like you said, conversation is just so toxic right now.
What I was gonna say is there's the whole part of it where we're behind screens, and of course when people are behind screens they say whatever they want when you would never have the balls to say in person. But I noticed it too. I have very conservative family members, and myself and my immediate family aren't conservative. We're definitely liberal leaning, so there are often very heated discussions and arguments that happen, and what I notice in those is that they're just not human discussions. You completely we just dehumanize each other. We become very we don't communicate productively, and immediately let emotion and take over, rather than oh well, this is what you think, okay. And when someone tells you something, you say, oh okay, well this is how I think, rather than attacking or accusing them of being a certain type of person. It's just turned into a lot of that, and that is just so unproductive and just really digs that divide and like drives it way bigger than how it was before. So I don't know, it's all about communication and humanizing each other and just communicating productively, which I think we've lost track of for sure, especially when it comes to politics, because
yeah,
we know how taboo it is, you know.
Yeah, and look, we haven't had very good guidance from the top, and you know, or great models to follow either. But it's very easy to complain about social media and all of the horrible, you know, side effects. But I try to look at it from a positive perspective too, and it's also provided such incredible opportunities. And for me, I've connected with so many amazing people, and you know, if we can kind of flip the narrative and use this as a tool for good, which is like what you guys are doing and what I'm trying to do, and like so everyone watching now and later, I feel like we'll find that there are more people that want this kind of world than not. So we just have to be a part of creating that, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to move on and ask before we. I do want to take some questions, but I want to ask more like just like tips on the podcast for anyone who's kind of interested in that area. I want to definitely provide some info for them. But Sammy, did you have anything before we kind of like shift to add to that?
No, I mean, I think Maddy captured it perfectly. And, you know, like I said, you know, the communication is key. It's key of everything, right? Like whether, you know, you run a business, whether you are literally trying to figure out directions to the movies, it doesn't matter. The whole thing works because of communication. So in the world of politics, it's the same mechanism. We just have to really take a hard look to, you know, how we're communicating, what's working and what's not, and start there and really build from there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I hope so.
Yeah.
So earlier this week, I spoke with my sister who just launched a company, Nudes, and I asked, you know, one of the questions I kept getting over and over was, how do you literally take an idea and turn it into a product? And that can be, we talked about how daunting that can be.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, you know, you guys don't have a tangible product, like she has food, but you know, you guys have a brand and you're building all these different verticals around it. And with the podcast specifically, I mean, how do you take it from, I want to start a podcast to, okay, here's our episode 1?
Yeah, it was a huge leap, and what Sam actually didn't like fully dive into our love story that we call it.
Let's hear it.
So Sam is the founder. She is the mother of Girl in the Gov. But back in the summer, in the, you know, heat of COVID, she just like followed me on Instagram from Girl in the Gov, which is my personal one. She thought, you know, the universe just led her to me, thought I would be interested in politics maybe by chance. And like little did she know, it was like a little. So I immediately saw, you know, her page and her mission and what Girl in the Gov was, and just like immediately was like, oh my God, like I'm obsessed. This is also like, her mission was also something that like I have been wanting to do, and like, you know, I had this like weird daydream of starting a podcast, and if it was to be anything, it was to be, you know, kind of a political resource for young people. So I was like, oh my God, like what? This is perfect. So I just told her like how, you know, impressed I was with the mission, how amazing it was, and you know, how, you know, what she's doing with COVID now. And, you know, she said all the events were on hold. And so I was like, have you thought of doing a podcast? So like my first piece of advice would be ask that person, like, you know, for information, for advice, tell them how much you love what they're doing, their product, their company, their mission, whatever it is. Definitely always like take that leap and reach out to those people. You never know what can happen. But from there, our DMs, we decided to hop on the for an hour. And from there, we literally, after an hour conversation, decided to do a podcast. And so for probably a couple months, we just kind of like worked on building it out from, you know, taking pictures of ourselves for the cover art.
I love the photo of you guys on the couch. I used it for mine. I love it.
To, you know, building out structures of episodes, to guest ideas, to social media stuff, and just really took the time to really build everything out. And yeah, I mean, just a lot of research because we both had no podcasting experience really. So we had to figure out, how do you distribute the podcast? How do you get it on these platforms? How do you edit all that stuff? So there's a lot of learning, and just a lot of like time really, I don't know, just dedicated to building things out for a while. I would say not to fully rush that process because you want it to be comprehensive and not really be missing anything. And so by September, we launched, end of September, right?
So when was the first DM?
July.
July
Okay.
3rd to be
That's my birthday. I swear.
We're all coming together.
This is like blowing because
it's the day before Independence Day. Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, I think, two of their birthdays are July 4th. But I'm July 3rd.
No, 7 is like my lucky number. Sam's is 3. And then we had like a crazy TikTok viral moment on March 3rd, so 3-3. So we're just like, we're watching all these numbers and like figuring out what it is. But no,
oh my gosh.
Launched in September. And from there, I mean, if I were to suggest listening to our podcast, like we have such amazing guests in the beginning episodes, but we just like forewarning, we've learned a lot since then. So the quality isn't as good as it is now, and we're going to continue to learn. But I think the other thing is just like be prepared to like not get it perfect right away, make mistakes. You're going to learn a lot through the process. And so don't rush it or don't get, too discouraged. You will learn as you go. But yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a process. It's genuinely wild. I think there's any advice. Oh my gosh, can I speak? Am I well? Advice.
It's been a long day.
Truly.
Trust me. But if there's any advice that I could give, it's don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
It's like you have to just try new things. They're not all going to work. Absolutely not. We literally have a note. I'm not even kidding you. A note on our phone that has all of the weird things that we have encountered / things that have not worked in our favor. That are absolutely hilarious. I cannot tell you them now because there's going to be a book at some point. Yeah. But let me tell you, everyone in 3 years, anyone who works in publishing and wants to hit us up that's watching, let us know. We've got you.
I love
hilarious stuff.
Oh, I love this. It's almost like because you always write down your successes and your goals and all the positive things, but to actually write down the failures too, in a way, is to show us, see how much you've grown too.
Totally.
I love this idea. It's kind of dark, but I love it.
No, but I think it's
epic fails.
Yeah, I think it's important though, because I feel like we get so caught up in the negative side of failing. There's so much positive that usually comes out of it. Sometimes it's the most positive that comes out of the failure. So you need to acknowledge them. Don't be scared of them. Let them happen. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I also always took for granted. I never realized how much my acting training would help me in real life. But totally. I'm so comfortable with failure because literally my job for 15 years was to go to auditions and 99.9% of the time not get them.
Rejection. So,
yeah. It's just part of the process. And so now when I don't get a job or when something doesn't go my way or whatever, it's like, okay, well, that was just I'm actually closer to my goal because that was just one step in that direction. Right. And so having that mindset shift is so crucial. And I love to share that story. And I love that you guys have that same attitude towards it because it really affects the way that you react to those the setbacks in life. And if you don't even look at them as setbacks, it's going to change kind of the entire way that you approach something. That's really cool. I love that idea.
I mean, look, everything's a learning moment, right? Or it has the potential to be. Some just happen to also be funny.
Yeah,
a lot of them are. Maybe not in the moment, but when you look back, they're really funny. Yeah. How did you guys, because you've had such amazing, renowned guests on your show. I mean, how did you get those guests? Did you just know all of these people, or do you have some connections or something? I mean, how did you get these amazing people?
It's a mix. It's some of our guests were, part of our networks previously.
Already we knew.
Yeah.
And then there's a few that we mixed in or people that we knew connected us with, or we cold emailed or cold. But I would say we only have done like only a few cold emails, right? Like that have actually come on the show.
So I was actually counting it the other day, and we actually have majority of ours are actually cold emails.
They are?
Wow.
Yeah.
So you don't even realize, because you also feel like you have a relationship. Like I would be on that cold email list, but we have a relationship now, you know, you don't.
Yeah. I guess after they seem like they're all our friends. So like, no, they're all
That's another really positive thing about social media is like you can really connect with people on such a larger scale, and I've made such incredible connections. And so I kind of bring this up to tell everyone also, you know, like don't be afraid to reach out to people if you have something to offer, you know, and you think that you can add value for them as well. I mean, don't be shy.
Yeah, we're the perfect example of that. So.
Yeah, I want to see, we covered a lot of the questions already, but I just want to make sure that I do get in, include people's questions and stuff. So I have one here, which is one I also wanted to ask. We talked about what we think the biggest problems are, but let's kind of flip that and, you know, what gives you the most hope these days?
I think young people, and just the people we really are trying to reach. You know, in 2020, I always say this, I was just like so blown away with the amount of people who started to pay attention, started to engage and activate. And I think that was for a multitude of reasons of last year and everything it was and everything that happened that led us to, you know, people going to vote ultimately. And you know, back in the summer when there was protests, I went to a few and it was so amazing. And like the energy was so amazing. And there were so many people. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, oh, I just hope everyone here like goes to vote. Like, please just like, make sure you like go vote after. But they like people did. And
they did.
They kept that same energy. And it was really cool to see. And I think that was just the start. I feel like we just kind of put a crack in that ceiling to really start to get young people engaged in politics and to change the narrative around it so that people don't feel so scared or intimidated or just like turned off by politics. I think 2020 was the first like kind of exciting ignitement of that. And so I'm excited to see what's to come. But yeah, I mean, I'm just very hopeful and just the people in general. I just feel like when we do, you know, do things together and really organize and motivate, like we can literally do anything. And again, I think 2020 was such a great example of that. So it gave me a lot of hope.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the momentum, right? Like the fact that we're even still here having this conversation a few months after national election and still have an audience, I think is something that's really hopeful and incredible for us all going forward, right? Politics is still a conversation people are having. People are more engaged. People are more interested. People are curious now. The silver lining of everything, right? What are the mechanisms that sort of control the way we live, right? What is the government? Did we learn about it? I don't even know, right? People are like figuring like, oh my gosh, I think I have to educate myself more. And so I think the momentum for being involved in politics is really exciting. And I think the momentum for everyone to get more educated is really exciting. And like, look, we could dive into some issues with how our schools are structured and et cetera, but without pulling onto a negative, the positive is people are doing the work themselves. And I think that's super exciting to see people doing, ourselves included. And I think that, you know, we're positioned well to, you know, sort of push this momentum even further afield. And so I'm excited to sort of see, even a year from now, like I'd love for us all to like chat again and be like, did this momentum continue to go? You know, like where is the energy now in the political field? Like, how do we feel? What's the vibe?
Well, and it's like, I don't even think it's just that people are like paying attention now. Now there's been so many things pop up of like, you know, all the incredible, you know, Instagram accounts that, you know, are informative, or the way we've talked about on our show, like influencers are now involved in, you know, just speaking up, even if it's like one post, just seeing, you know, your favorite fashion influencer speak up about an issue or post something, a resource that you can get involved or whatever it is, like that stuff has, you know, taken over in such an amazing way. And to, you know, people starting podcasts, newsletters, you know, we've partnered with so many cool brands and different like influencers and stuff who are new and just trying to make an impact in different creative ways. So that has been really cool too, like from, you know, different tech stuff to social media to people making like feminist merch to, you know, all these different, you know, avenues people are going down. And just all that stuff is popping up, which is so cool. And just filling the market, which is amazing. So it's just all of that is super hopeful.
Yeah. There's so many brands that are really like stepping up. It's amazing. I'm just gonna like give this moment to like give a little shout out to one of our partners, Solely Sisterhood. They have the cutest stuff, including, where did I put it? Guys, like a little ad right now.
Yes, let's see.
The present is female mug, and I'm obsessed with it.
I love it.
It's empty right now because I'm not giving myself coffee after 4 p.m. these days. Shocking, right? You know, gotta reel it back. But the cutest stuff, so everyone should check them out.
Can you say their name again?
Solely Sisterhood.
Love it.
Stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, that also kind of touches on young people, but new emerging brands. I mean, everyone, it seems, really has a mission now. It's almost like you can't start a brand like without having kind of a purpose and a mission, or like connecting yourself to something like that actually gives back to the community or the environment in some way. That's just that's something new that's emerged, I think, in our generation and next generations, whereas before it was like, how can we extract as many resources as we can, you know? And now it's more like, how can we give back? And that's really exciting. So I think you're totally right. And any opportunity that we have to push some of these like small emerging brands that are doing really amazing things I'm all for it.
Totally.
But on that note, I definitely want to end on a positive note, because, you know, as dark as things may seem sometimes, and as frustrating and helpless, you know, there is so much that we have to be grateful for, and also that we have to be excited about. And I am so grateful for the work that you two are doing. Do you want to plug where everyone can find you?
Yes. Okay, I guess I'll do it. So first, obviously, our Instagram, we have two, clearly, because Sam is at the Girl in the Gov one. I think is this the correct way I'm playing?
No. Over here.
That's Girl in the Gov. This is Girl in the Gov, the podcast. Follow both. We just provide like really cute content that's politically themed. That's not just like, it's usually like cute pics of us that you would normally see on your Instagram, but we give you some kind of political information. But
it's great.
And then the podcast, we release episodes every Wednesday. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, all the places. TikTok, we are Girl in the Gov on TikTok, and Twitter. We have 2 Twitters too, and that's one of the things in our notes of like just the weird things we've done. Like 2 Twitter.
Oh my gosh, my dog! I'm babysitting my friend's dog, and so my dog now has a friend to play with, and so the 2 of them are going crazy.
Oh, that's cute. But
sorry.
So we have Girl in the Gov 1 and Girl in the Gov. Which is like, it's just really like.
You'll explain that when you publish your book.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but like, for now, we are funny.
No,
it's really us just thinking we're funny, but like, follow us.
I love it. And, you know, if you're going to listen to the podcast, I highly recommend the most recent podcast episode. You know, I thought it was pretty good.
Yes.
There's no bias here.
Podcast, you guys.
None whatsoever. But no, check them out. Seriously. I love your guys' podcast. I'm so excited for all that's to come for you, and to watch you grow, and to listen to your episodes every Wednesday. And I really hope that we'll get to do more together in the future. I know this is only the beginning. So thank you guys so much for spending so many hours with me this week.
I
mean, like, our pleasure. Anytime.
Seriously, anytime. Like, people will get sick of us, but I think it's for their best interest, you know, like they
Absolutely.
need us. It's just like,
absolutely. Yeah, we're fun to hang out with, and you'll learn something.
Exactly.
You'll have fun.
Exactly. But thank you for having us and for coming on the show. We've
had a blast.
You, so
it was so much fun. So thank you. We'll speak for sure. We'll speak soon.
Yes, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
I don't know how to end this. Like that. There we go.